A lot has been said about the New Marriages Bill of 2019, and the question that lingers on every Zimbabwean's mind is, should we kill the Marriages Bill? But hold your horses, because topics like this can be emotional. Here's a piece of advice. Before you sensationalize or even trivialize, first analyze. And that process requires you to ask three pivotal questions. Firstly, what is the marriage law in Zimbabwe like before the Marriages Bill? Secondly, what new changes does the Marriages Bill propose to bring? And lastly, are we for or against those changes? So let's dig in. The marriage regime in Zimbabwe is divided into two broad categories of marriages. One can be married under the Marriages Act, Chapter 511, and that's the type of marriage that is commonly referred to as a church wedding. Now, if you're in this type of marriage, one man goes to one woman. So sorry to those with greedy appetites, but that's the exclusive marriage that the Christian community and myself included advocate for. Now, if you are married under the 511 marriage, it brings with it certain proprietary consequences. What this means is there are certain property benefits, and as it stands, the 511 marriage is regarded as the superior marriage because of its exclusive nature. If anyone attempts to marry anyone else when they are already married under the 511 marriage, they'll be arrested for bigamy. Now, the second type of marriage is the customary marriage, which is enacted by the Customary Marriages Act, Chapter 507. This is what is commonly referred to as a potentially polygynous marriage. Now, under this type of marriage, a man can get one wife, a second wife, why not throw in a third wife, a fourth or a fifth, as many as you want. And before you start getting any ideas, I'm personally not for this type of marriage. But those are the two broad categories of marriage. Now, how does one get into a customary marriage? 3 simple steps. First, identify your potential partner. Secondly, pay lobola for your potential partner. And thirdly, get the marriage registered or solemnized. What this means is if you just pay lobola and you don't actually take a further step to get the marriage registered, you are not technically married. You are in what we call an unregistered customary law union. So, we have clarified that there are two broad categories of marriage presently in Zimbabwe. But what does marriage even mean? Marriage is a contract between two people where the people promise each other affection and certain rights, including the right to consortium, where you've got your conjugal rights, the right to maintenance. And yes, ladies, you can celebrate the right to maintenance because it sort of gives you a legal ticket to get those Brazilian weaves and stilettos you like very much, right? There is the right to natural affection, the right to care for each other. And by its very nature, marriage is protected by 4 walls. What this means is it's meant to be a contract sui generis, a special type of relationship where the people involved in a marriage owe each other exclusive rights. Now, how does a marriage dissolve under current laws? Currently, when a marriage dissolves, the Matrimonial Causes Act kicks in. Now, this is a law in Zimbabwe that deals with property sharing upon the dissolution of marriage. And in terms of that law, a court can order the parties to share their property. A court can distribute property belonging to parties in a marriage. If A is married to B, the court can order that property that is registered in A's name be transferred to B when the marriage dissolves. Now, the court looks at many things, and those things, honestly, are not the subject of conversation today. So this was necessary, but it brings us to conversation about the bill. The bill everyone is talking about. What changes does the bill propose? And I have to say from the onset that some of the changes are actually positive. For instance, the bill simply aligns the marriage laws in Zimbabwe with the constitution. So you've got provisions that are high-sounding and highly promising. You cannot compel anyone to get into a marriage thanks to the Marriages Bill. So no one can force any adult to get into a marriage with any particular parent. Do you hear that, African movie mothers? Now, apart from that, the Marriages Bill brings in an interesting addition to our marriage regime. Children can no longer be pledged in marriage, and this is a restatement of what the Constitution already provides. So in some respects, the marriages bill is good. It also abolishes the old division of chapter 511 and chapter 507 and declares that marriage laws in Zimbabwe are now wholly catered for by the marriages bill. The controversy with the bill starts when we consider the contents of section 40, the notorious section 40. Now, section 40 of the bill introduces what we call a civil partnership. This is a type of relationship that is unique to the bill. It's a relationship where two adults who are not necessarily married to each other, who are not married to each other, are living together on a genuine domestic basis. So you can have A and C living together, but they are not married to each other, and those two people can be civil partners for the purposes of marriage laws. Now, the bill goes on to say that a civil partnership can exist besides the fact that one of the partners can be married to someone else. Let's slow down a little bit and clarify that. If A is married to B, what the bill is saying is that A can be a civil partner to C, besides the fact that A is married to B. Now, that's where the controversy is, because the bill then goes on to say that should a civil partnership dissolve, the property sharing laws in section 7 to section 11 of the Matrimonial Causes Act kick in. What this means is that if A is to dissolve the civil partnership with C, the court can order that the parties A and C should share property. Now, I've heard many commentators saying that it only targets property that was acquired by the civil partnership, but it's not as clear when you read the bill. And honestly speaking, the bill simply says section 7 to 11 applies. So one must go further and ask, what does section 7 say? Or what are its implications? Section 7 simply says that the court can actually order the property of one spouse to be transferred to the other. So if A has property registered in his name, that property can be transferred to C, besides the fact that A has a marriage with B. So inevitably, the bill as it is currently worded might affect the marriage between A and B. And that's where we get most of the outcry with the bill, especially with the Christian community. So the question is, are our legislators crazy? I believe not. I believe they had a genuine reason for enacting such a law. So let's take a look at the hypothetical case of Sally. Sally is a woman who lives with Bob. Sally and Bob are not married, but guess what? They've been living together for 20 years. They have been raising kids. They have been building together. They have shared love and affection for a long time, and yet they are not married. But for some reason, Bob was married to Elisa before Sally came along. And that marriage didn't work out, but Bob didn't go on to divorce, which means that Bob and Lisa still have a marriage certificate, besides the fact that Bob has long forgotten about Lisa and is now living with Sally for the past 20 years. If for some reason, and God forbid, but if Bob is to die, Sally is going to be exposed, because guess what? Lisa can prance with a marriage certificate and take everything that Sally worked for. So maybe our MPs and legislators and whoever has been pushing for the bill has the best interests of Sally in mind. But it's not all too explicitly clear. And that's where the confusion with the bill is coming from, particularly by a large army of people who are shouting that the bill is going to legitimize the institution that has for decades been known as a small house. The question that remains after this analysis is, what should we do with the bill? It is a question on whose determination rests the hopes and aspirations of many marriages in Zimbabwe. A question which even the women in Zimbabwe want answered. The men in Zimbabwe need answered. A question on whose determination rests the sanity of our law. That question that lingers on our minds is, should we kill the marriages bill? This has been Layman'S Law with Simba Morondoti on a Wednesday. Let's meet next Wednesday to dissect the meaning of yet another law. Let's keep walking the talk. Cheers.